Commander Jinho rubbed his tired eyes as another wave of static filled the deep space monitoring station. For 3 days straight, his team had been picking up strange signals from beyond the outer rim. Most were just cosmic noise, but this one was different. The transmission was clearly artificial, clearly desperate. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a creature unlike anything in Earth's databases. It had 4 long arms that moved frantically as it spoke, its large black eyes wide with terror. The alien's mouth opened and closed rapidly, producing sounds that made Jinho's universal translator work overtime to decode. Emergency. ... Council fleets completely destroyed. Ancient machines have awakened from deep space. ... They are consuming entire worlds, and everyone on them. ... If anyone receives this message, we are making our last stand at Sanctuary Prime. Our final stronghold is failing. Please, if there is anyone out there who can help us. The transmission suddenly cut off, leaving only empty static. Jinho felt a chill run down his spine. He had never seen such raw fear in any living being's eyes, not even during Earth's worst disasters. This alien was watching its entire civilization die. Within minutes, Jinho was on a secure line to Admiral Hyjin at Earth Defense Command. The Admiral's weathered face appeared on his screen, her gray hair pulled back in the military style she had worn for 30 years of service. "Commander, what do you have for me?" she asked, her voice steady, despite being woken at 3 in the morning. "Ma'am, we've intercepted what appears to be a galactic distress call. The translation algorithms are still working, but it's bad, really bad. Over the next 6 hours, Earth's best linguists and computer scientists worked to decode the full message. What they discovered made Jinho wish they had never picked up the signal at all. An ancient race of machines called the Harvesters had somehow awakened from millions of years of sleep. These machines had one purpose: to consume all organic life they encountered. The message came from something called the Galactic Council, a group of alien civilizations that had apparently been working together for thousands of years. For months, they had been fighting a losing war against these harvesters. Their most advanced weapons barely scratched the machine ships. Their greatest warriors fell like wheat before a scythe. "They never even tried to contact us before this," Admiral Hyjin said, as she studied the decoded message. Her voice carried decades of military experience and a hint of bitter irony. "According to their own records, they've known about Earth for over 50 years. They considered us too primitive and violent to join their peaceful galaxy. Called our planet because of how harsh our environment is." Jinho pulled up the star charts his team had created, showing the Harvester's path of destruction. Red dots marked dead systems, growing larger with each passing day. "Ma'am, based on their current speed and direction, they'll reach our solar system in approximately 18 months. Whether we help these aliens or not, the Harvesters are coming for us." The Admiral stared at the holographic display for a long moment. Jinho could see her mind working, calculating odds and possibilities. Finally, her expression hardened into the look that had earned her respect throughout the military. "Well then," she said quietly, "we better make sure these machines regret the day they decided to threaten Earth. Get me a direct line to the President and the UN Defense Council. It's time to show this galaxy what Deathworlders can really do." Admiral Talonix pressed his scaled hands against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching in horror as another evacuation ship tried to escape Sanctuary Prime's orbit. The massive vessel, carrying over 10,000 refugees from the outer colonies, suddenly erupted in a brilliant flash of white light. Within seconds, nothing remained but glowing debris scattered across the void. The Harvester dreadnoughts, responsible for the destruction, moved like deadly shadows against the stars. Their hulls were so dark they seemed to absorb light itself, making them nearly invisible, except for the occasional gleam of their weapon arrays. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the Council's largest battlecruisers, and they moved with the terrifying precision that only machines could achieve. Telenyx had been fighting these monsters for 8 months now, ever since they first appeared at the edge of Council space. He had watched them systematically destroy every defense the galaxy's greatest minds could devise. Their adaptive shields learned from each attack, making the same weapon useless after just one engagement. Their armor grew stronger with each battle. They were the perfect enemy, designed to counter everything the civilized galaxy could throw at them. Behind him in the command chamber, panic was setting in among the council representatives. The room echoed with dozens of different languages, as alien species argued about their rapidly shrinking options. Ambassador Ferrix, a bird-like creature from the peaceful Kepler colonies, was practically bouncing on his perch with nervous energy. "We must try to negotiate with them," Ferrix squeaked, his colorful feathers standing on end with fear. "Surely even machines can be reasoned with. Perhaps if we offer them certain systems, they will spare the others. Maybe we can find some kind of arrangement." Admiral Telenyx turned from the viewport, his 4 eyes blazing with barely controlled anger. "Ambassador, in 8 months of fighting, the Harvesters have never once responded to any communication attempt. They do not speak. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy." His voice grew harder with each word. "They are not conquerors looking for territory or resources. They are machines built for one purpose only, to consume every trace of organic life they encounter." Council mediator Veltar, whose species had overseen galactic diplomacy for over 2,000 years, shifted nervously in her specialized chair. Her long tentacles writhed with the anxiety that her people could never quite hide. "The emergency beacon we sent 3 days ago," she said quietly, "the one directed toward the Sol system. I still cannot believe we were desperate enough to try that." "The humans?" asked another representative, making a sound that might have been laughter if it wasn't so bitter. "Those savages from that terrible death world. Even if their primitive sensors could detect our message, what could they possibly do? They still use chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They haven't even achieved basic energy manipulation." "Admiral," Telenyx said nothing, but continued watching the battle outside. Another council cruiser, the pride of the Zentari fleet, was caught between 2 harvester ships. Its energy shields, the most advanced in the galaxy, lasted exactly 12 seconds before collapsing. The ship broke apart like a toy in the hands of an angry child, as he watched his civilization burn. A strange thought crossed the Admiral's mind. Maybe what they needed wasn't more advanced technology or better diplomacy. Maybe, just maybe, what they needed was exactly what the Council had always rejected: primitive, violent, unreasonable savages who didn't know when to quit fighting. President Moonsu stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall, looking out at the faces of Earth's most powerful leaders. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of what they had just learned. The massive holographic display behind him showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with red zones, marking the path of destruction left by the Harvesters. "Ladies and gentlemen," the President began, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's future. 48 hours ago, we received our first communication from beyond our solar system. It was not the peaceful first contact that our scientists had dreamed about 4 generations. It was a cry for help from a dying civilization. The hologram shifted, showing image after image of dead worlds. Planets that had once been green and blue were now nothing but scorched rock. Space stations that had housed millions were reduced to twisted metal floating in the void. Entire star systems had been stripped of all life, leaving behind only empty shells. For over 50 years, the Galactic Council has known about Earth, President Moonsu continued. They have watched us, studied us, and judged us. They decided we were too violent, too primitive, too dangerous to be part of their peaceful galaxy. They called our world a death world because of our harsh weather, our active volcanoes, and our tendency to fight each other over resources. A murmur of anger rippled through the assembly. General Yuna, her weathered face bearing scars from The Korean Unification War, leaned forward in her seat. Several other military leaders shifted uncomfortably, clearly thinking about all the times Earth could have benefited from galactic technology and knowledge. Now their greatest fleets are destroyed, the president said, his voice growing harder. Their most advanced weapons have failed. Their brightest minds cannot find a solution, and in their darkest hour, they turn to the same Deathworlders they once rejected. They are begging the primitive humans to save them. Admiral Hyjin rose from her seat and approached the podium. The assembly knew her reputation well. She had spent 30 years climbing through the ranks of Earth's combined defense forces, earning respect through pure competence and an unwavering dedication to protecting humanity. Our scientists have been analyzing the data from the Galactic Council, she reported. The harvesters use something called adaptive technology. Every time the Council destroys one of their ships, the remaining machines learn from that attack. They modify their defenses, upgrade their armor, change their tactics. Within hours, the same weapon that worked once becomes completely useless. She paused, letting that sink in. The Council species have been fighting them like civilized beings. They use precise strikes to minimize their own casualties. They retreat when the odds turn against them. They try to preserve their ships and their people above all else. And that's wrong, General Yuna asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Admiral Hyjin smiled grimly. General, we're human. We've been surviving on a world that actively tries to kill us every single day. We've fought wars where we accepted massive losses to achieve victory. We understand something that these peaceful aliens have forgotten. Sometimes winning requires sacrifice. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives debated among themselves. Some argued that Earth should focus on defending itself rather than helping aliens who had snubbed them. Others pointed out that the harvesters would reach Earth eventually, whether they helped or not. President Munsu raised his hand for silence. The question before us is simple. Do we hide and hope these machines pass us by? Do we run and try to find some corner of the galaxy to hide in? Or do we do what humans have always done when others need help? The vote was swift and unanimous. Earth would answer the call. Chief Engineer Soman floated through the zero gravity of Orbital Shipyard 7, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal walkways as she supervised the greatest construction project in human history. Around her, the vast facility buzzed with activity 24 hours a day. Sparks flew from welding torches, massive cranes moved hull sections into place, and thousands of workers in pressure suits crawled over the ships like ants building their colony. What they were building would have shocked any civilized species in the galaxy. The humans weren't constructing elegant warships with smooth lines and advanced energy shields. Instead, they were taking every vessel they could find and turning them into weapons of war through pure brute force engineering. The massive cargo hauler Iron Mountain, which had once carried ore from the asteroid belt, now bristled with missile launchers and armor plating. Its huge cargo holds had been converted into ammunition storage, packed with enough explosives to level a small city. The luxury cruise liner Starlight Dream, which had carried wealthy passengers on tours of the outer planets, was being fitted with plasma cannons that would have made Council engineers weep with horror. So Min pulled herself along a guide cable to inspect the latest modification on a converted mining ship. The vessel's industrial cutting lasers, originally designed to slice through asteroids, had been upgraded and repositioned as close-range weapons. The radiation shielding had been stripped away and replaced with additional armor plating. The crew quarters had been reduced to barely livable spaces to make room for more weapons. Chief Engineer Soman, came a soft voice behind her. She turned to see Veltar, the Council mediator, who had arrived on Earth 3 weeks ago as part of a small group of refugees. The alien's tentacles were wrapped tightly around her body in what Soman had learned was a sign of distress among her species. These ships, Veltar whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of fascination and horror, They appear to be designed with the expectation of complete destruction. Your armor is thick, but your weapon systems are exposed. Your engines lack proper shielding. Everything about them suggests you expect them to be destroyed in battle. Somin wiped sweat from her forehead with a grease-stained cloth. They're built to take damage and keep fighting, she corrected. Just like everything else we make on Earth. Our cars are designed to survive crashes. Our buildings are made to withstand earthquakes and hurricanes. Our tools are built to work even when they're broken. She gestured toward the modified mining ship beside them. This beauty used to work in the asteroid belt, where a single mistake meant death. She's already survived micrometeorite impacts, radiation storms, and equipment failures that would have killed a softer ship. Now we're just giving her some teeth. Veltar's tentacles writhed as she studied the weapon systems. But these plasma cannons, they will irradiate your own crew compartments. Your nuclear missile systems have no safety interlocks. Your kinetic weapons could damage your own ship if fired at the wrong angle. War isn't safe, Somin replied. Simply, the Council has been trying to fight a clean war, with minimal risk to your own people. That's why you're losing. The alien mediator floated closer to examine the crew quarters. Her large eyes widened in shock. Your living spaces have no emergency escape pods. In Council ships, every section has multiple ways for the crew to abandon ship if necessary. Somin actually laughed at this. Escape pods are just targets waiting to be picked off. Better to build ships tough enough that the crew doesn't need to abandon them. She pointed to the thick bulkheads and redundant life support systems. Every critical system has 3 backups. If the bridge gets destroyed, they can run the ship from engineering. If engineering gets hit, they can fight from the weapon control centers. Veltar looked around at the hundreds of ships under construction. Each one was different, converted from whatever civilian vessel they could find, but all shared the same brutal philosophy. They were designed by people who understood that sometimes you had to be willing to lose everything to win anything. Your species truly is from a death world, Veltar murmured. You build everything as if the universe is trying to kill you. Somin smiled grimly as she watched her teams install another set of missile launchers. That's because it is. Admiral Hyjin stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Defiance. Her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the greatest armada in human history prepare for departure. Through the massive viewport, she could see hundreds of ships stretching out in formation as far as the eye could see. Each vessel told a story of human ingenuity and determination. The converted asteroid hauler Mountain Breaker floated nearby, its industrial frame now covered in weapon systems and armor plating. What had once carried rocks and ore through space was now a mobile weapons platform carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Next to it, the sleek destroyer Lightning Strike tested its engines, the ship's former role as a luxury yacht, completely transformed by the addition of missile batteries and plasma cannons. Admiral, came the voice of Captain Dongwook over the communication system. His ship, the escort carrier Vengeance, had been built from the hull of an old space station transport. All fighter squadrons report ready for deployment. My pilots have been training non-stop for the past month. They're practically bouncing off the walls with excitement to show these machines what human determination looks like. Hyjin smiled slightly at the enthusiasm in his voice. The fighter pilots were mostly young volunteers, many of them barely out of flight school. But they had something the alien species seemed to lack. They weren't afraid to take risks. While Council pilots flew cautious, defensive patterns designed to minimize losses. Human pilots trained for kamikaze runs and suicide missions. Understood, Captain, keep them ready. We don't know what we'll face out there. She opened a fleet channel. All ships. This is Admiral Hyjin. Final systems check in 5 minutes. Then we depart for the Galactic Core. Around the bridge of the Defiance, her crew moved with practiced efficiency. These weren't career military officers with decades of space combat experience. Most of them had been civilian engineers, scientists, and technicians just months ago. But they had volunteered for this mission knowing full well they might never see Earth again. Lieutenant Commander Youngsu, her tactical officer, was a former asteroid mining engineer who had learned military strategy from training videos and historical battles. Communications Officer Ji Hai had been teaching children at a space station school before the war began. Yet here they were, ready to face an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Through the viewport, Earth grew smaller as the fleet moved away from their home. The blue and green world that had birthed humanity was now just a distant marble against the black of space. Many of the crew pressed against the windows, taking what might be their last look at the world they were fighting to protect. "You know," said Engineer Tejo quietly, "my grandfather fought in the Third World War. He used to tell me stories about how they never knew if they'd come home from each battle. I never really understood what he meant until now." Navigator Sung-min nodded. "My great-grandmother survived the climate wars. She always said that sometimes good people have to do terrible things to protect the ones they love." Admiral Hyjin listened to her crew talk and felt a fierce pride swell in her chest. This was what made humans different from the other species in the galaxy. They didn't fight because they had superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They fought because it was the right thing to do, even when the odds were impossible. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," reported Communications Officer Ji Hai. "Set course for the Galactic Core," Admiral Hyjin commanded. "Time to answer that SOS." As the fleet entered hyperspace, intercepted Council transmissions continued to paint an increasingly desperate picture. Another star system had fallen. More refugee ships had been destroyed. The Harvester advance continued relentlessly toward the Council's last stronghold. But for the first time in months, help was coming. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace into what could only be described as a graveyard. Twisted metal and debris stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction, the remains of what had once been a mighty Council battle group. Emergency beacons flickered weakly among the wreckage, automated distress calls from ships that no longer existed. Admiral Hyjin stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching her sensors paint a picture of complete devastation. Massive chunks of alien warships drifted silently through space, their hulls torn open like paper. Some pieces were still glowing from recent battle damage, casting eerie shadows across the debris field. "Admiral," reported Sensor Officer Jung, his voice tight with concern, "I'm detecting 57 active ships clustered near the Kepler relay station. They're broadcasting Council identification codes, but their energy signatures are extremely weak." "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Hyjin commanded. "We don't know if the Harvesters are still in the area. Stay alert and ready for anything." The human fleet moved cautiously through the debris field, their weapons powered and shields raised. Captain G1 of the destroyer Retribution took point position, her ship's sensors sweeping for any signs of enemy activity. "Council vessels," Captain G1 broadcast on all frequencies. "This is the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call and have come to assist. Please respond." For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through, filled with such shock and disbelief that it was almost comical. "Earth ships? Did you just say Earth? You actually came. But how did you even find us?" The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien warship. The creature looking back at them had 4 arms and scales that gleamed dully in the emergency lighting. This was Admiral Talanix, though he looked nothing like the proud military commander he had once been. His uniform was torn and stained, his scales bore fresh scars, and his eyes held the hollow look of someone who had watched his entire world burn. "Humans," Admiral Talanix said, his voice carrying a mixture of surprise and desperate hope. "I must confess, we did not expect anyone to answer our distress call. Certainly not the Deathworlders from the Outer Rim that the Council had always ignored." Admiral Hyjin stepped forward, her expression serious but not unkind. Admiral Talanix, I presume. How many survivors do you have with you? The alien commander's shoulders sagged with exhaustion. 57 ships from 8 different homeworlds, all that remains of the Third Fleet after our encounter with the Harvesters 3 days ago. We lost over 200 vessels in less than 6 hours. His voice cracked slightly. They cut through our defenses like they weren't even there. The tactical displays on both ships synced up, showing the battle data from the Council's recent encounters with the Harvesters. Admiral Hai-Jin studied the information with growing understanding. The alien tactics were textbook perfect, measured engagements designed to minimize casualties, careful positioning to protect valuable assets, strategic retreats when the odds turned unfavorable. The Harvesters, Admiral Talanix continued. They learn from every attack we make against them. Our energy weapons work once, maybe twice, then their shields adapt and our weapons become useless. Our kinetic projectiles damage them initially, then they modify their armor to resist the same attack. Even our most advanced plasma cannons, which took us centuries to develop, become ineffective after a single engagement. Admiral Hai-Jin nodded slowly. You've been fighting them like civilized beings, she observed. Precise strikes, minimal risk. Preserve your forces for the next battle. Admiral Talanix looked confused by her tone. Of course. How else would any reasonable species conduct warfare? The goal is to achieve victory while preserving as many lives as possible. Admiral Hai-Jin's expression grew grim, and for a moment, Admiral Talanix caught a glimpse of something that made his blood run cold. This human commander had the same look in her eyes that he had seen in the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Admiral, she said quietly, sometimes you have to fight like your life depends on it, because it does. The Crimson Nebula stretched before them like a vast ocean of red mist, its swirling gas clouds hiding both opportunities and dangers. Admiral Hai-Jin had chosen this location carefully after studying the Harvester movement patterns. The dense particles would interfere with long-range sensors, giving her fleet a chance to get close before the enemy could adapt to their tactics. All ships maintain radio silence, Admiral Hai-Jin commanded as the combined Human Council fleet moved deeper into the nebula. The red glow outside the viewports cast everything in an eerie light, making the bridge feel like they were sailing through blood. Council vessels, take positions at grid coordinates 7 through 12. Human ships, follow me to the forward positions. Admiral Talanix's voice came through on a secure channel, his concern obvious even through the static. Admiral Hai-Jin, are you certain about this positioning? Your ships are taking all the risk while we remain in the rear. This goes against every principle of combined fleet operations. Trust me, Admiral Hai-Jin replied. Your ships are designed for long-range precision strikes. Ours are designed for close combat. Let us do what we do best. Sensor operator, Young, suddenly straightened at his station, his hands flying over the controls. Admiral, I'm picking up massive energy signatures moving through the nebula. Harvester fleet, bearing 27 Mark IV, 12 dreadnoughts, and 43 escort vessels, approaching fast. The bridge fell silent as everyone processed those numbers. The human fleet had barely 200 ships, many of them converted civilian vessels. The Harvesters were bringing 55 purpose-built war machines, each one capable of destroying multiple human ships. Admiral Talanix's voice crackled with panic over the communication system. Admiral Hai-Jin, those odds are mathematically impossible. We are outnumbered and outgunned. Standard military doctrine requires an immediate strategic withdrawal. We should retreat and regroup with the main council forces. Negative. Admiral Hai-Jin cut him off, her voice as hard as steel. All human ships, initiate attack pattern. Omega. Remember what we discussed in training? We're not trying to survive this engagement. We're trying to win it. The response from her captains was immediate and enthusiastic. Captain Sujin of the destroyer Fury was first to respond. Copy that, Admiral. Fury is ready to show these machines what humans are made of. Captain Minho of the converted mining ship Iron Mountain chimed in next. Industrial cutting lasers charged and ready. Let's see how they like being carved up like asteroids. Admiral Hyjin watched as her fleet formed up in an attack formation. That would have horrified any Council military academy. Instead of maintaining safe distances and coordinated firing patterns, the human ships clustered together in tight groups, their weapons trained, not on optimal target zones, but on whatever would cause the most damage. Here they come, reported Young Ho, as the harvester fleet emerged from the red mist like sharks cutting through water. The dark ships moved with mechanical precision, their weapons already charging for what they expected to be another easy victory. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations to come. The human fleet didn't maneuver for advantageous positions or try to maximize their firepower efficiency. Instead, they charged straight into the harvester, formation like ancient cavalry, attacking a fortified position. Captain Sujin's destroyer, Fury, led the charge. Her ship's engines pushed beyond their safety limits as she aimed directly at the largest harvester dreadnought. At the last moment, she rammed her vessel straight into the enemy ship's engine section, nuclear warheads detonating on impact. Both ships disappeared in a brilliant flash of light, but the explosion crippled two other harvester vessels. The converted mining ship Iron Mountain followed close behind, using its massive industrial cutting lasers at point-blank range against a harvester cruiser. The civilian ship absorbed incoming fire that would have completely destroyed 3 Council vessels. Its thick armor plating and redundant systems keeping it fighting even as pieces of hull were blown away. For the first time since the war began, something unprecedented happened. The harvester ships, their adaptive algorithms struggling to process tactics based on acceptable total loss, began to fall back. Their programming couldn't understand an enemy that was willing to trade ship for in suicide attacks. Admiral Talanix watched from his command ship in stunned disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're actually retreating. The harvesters are falling back." The human war fleet tore through hyperspace and emerged above Sanctuary Prime to witness the final moments of galactic civilization. The planet below was a beautiful blue and green world, much like Earth, but its skies were filled with the wreckage of its orbital defenses. Massive harvester dreadnoughts, each the size of a city, moved in perfect formation toward the planet's surface. Like a swarm of mechanical vultures, Admiral Hyjin stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as defense platforms that had protected the planet for thousands of years crumbled under harvester fire. Escape pods and refugee ships fled desperately from the dying stations, many of them cut down before they could reach the planet's atmosphere. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Ji-Hai, her voice tight with urgency, "I'm receiving transmissions from the surface. Billions of civilians are trapped down there. The harvesters are preparing some kind of final bombardment." Through the viewport, Hyjin could see the largest harvester ship positioning itself directly above the planet's capital city. Energy was building along its hull, preparing for what could only be a planet-killing weapon. "All ships, this is Admiral Hyjin," she broadcast across the fleet. "This is it. This is everything we've trained for, everything we've prepared for. The moment when we prove that humans don't run from a fight." Her voice carried the weight of humanity's determination. Council ships maintained defensive positions around the evacuation routes. Human vessels execute Final Protocol. Final Protocol was something that would have horrified any civilized military commander. It meant abandoning all concern for ship preservation, crew survival rates, or strategic retreat options. It meant fighting until every human ship was either victorious or destroyed. Captain Minho of the battleship Indomitable responded immediately. "Copy that, Admiral." Indomitable, moving to intercept the command vessel. "It's been an honor serving with you all." His massive battleship, converted from an old colony transport, accelerated directly toward the largest harvester dreadnought. The enemy ship fired everything it had at the approaching human vessel. But Minho's ship had been built by people who understood that sometimes you had to take a hit to deliver one. The Indomitable rammed directly into the Harvester command ship, its nuclear payload detonating at the moment of impact. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a brief new star that outshone the system's sun. Both ships were completely destroyed. But the Harvester vessel's adaptation systems had no defense against the raw, primitive destruction of atomic fire. Across the battlefield, other human ships followed suit. The converted mining vessel Deep Striker used its industrial equipment to literally tear holes in Harvester hulls. The former luxury liner Star Princess had been packed with explosives and rammed into a cluster of enemy escorts, taking out 5 ships in a single suicidal charge. But the humans weren't just throwing their ships away randomly. Engineering Chief Soman coordinated something that no Council species would have attempted: boarding actions against the Harvester vessels themselves. Human Marines in powered armor launched themselves from damaged ships directly into the mechanical corridors of enemy vessels. The Harvester's artificial intelligence systems, designed to counter logical military tactics, found themselves completely confused by humans fighting with explosives, flamethrowers, and close combat weapons in the corridors of their own ships. The machines had algorithms for energy weapons and kinetic bombardment, but no programming for dealing with soldiers who would set off grenades in enclosed spaces or use cutting torches as weapons. Admiral Lennox, watching from his position with the Council fleet, could barely believe what he was seeing. "They fight like they have nothing left to lose," he whispered to his bridge crew. Admiral Higzin's voice came through the communication system as her own ship shuddered under direct Harvester fire. The Defiance was taking massive damage, but she kept fighting. "No, Admiral. We don't fight like we have nothing to lose. We fight like we have everything to protect." Below them, Sanctuary Prime's billions of inhabitants watched as the Deathworlders from Earth threw themselves against impossible odds to save people who had once rejected them. The final Harvester dreadnought died in a brilliant explosion that lit up the space around Sanctuary Prime like a second sun. For a moment, the debris field was filled with cascading fire and twisted metal as the massive machine ship tore itself apart. Then there was silence, broken only by the crackling of damaged communication systems and the gentle hum of surviving engines. Admiral Hygin stood on what remained of the Defiance's bridge, her command chair destroyed by a direct hit that had killed 3 of her officers. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, both her own and that of her crew. A piece of shrapnel had left a long scar across her left cheek, but her eyes still burned with the determination that had carried humanity across the galaxy to fight for strangers. Around her, the surviving crew members worked at damaged control stations, their movements slow with exhaustion, but their dedication unwavering. Communications Officer Jihai had a bandage wrapped around her head, but she continued coordinating rescue operations. Tactical Officer Young-Soo operated his console with one arm in a makeshift sling, calling out damage reports and survivor counts through the cracked viewport. Admiral Hygin could see the aftermath of the greatest battle in galactic history. Of the 300 ships that had left Earth, barely 120 remained operational. The space around Sanctuary Prime was filled with debris from both human and Harvester vessels, a testament to the brutal cost of victory. But they had won. For the first time since the ancient machines had awakened, the Harvesters had been completely defeated. Their adaptive algorithms, so effective against civilized warfare, had been overwhelmed by humanity's willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. "Admiral," came a familiar voice over the communication system. Council Mediator Valtar appeared on the main screen, her tentacles moving in what Hygin had learned was a gesture of deep respect among her people. "I am transmitting from the Council chambers on Sanctuary Prime's surface. The planetary government has asked me to speak for all Council species." The alien mediator paused, clearly struggling with emotions that her species rarely displayed publicly. Admiral Hygen, on behalf of the Galactic Council and the billions of lives you have saved today, I formally invite humanity to join our alliance as a full member species. Your people have proven themselves to be not just the finest warriors the galaxy has ever known, but its greatest protectors. Admiral Hygen looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth spinning quietly in its distant solar system. She thought of the crews who would never see their homeworld again, of the families waiting for ships that would never return, of the price her species had paid to save people who had once called them primitive savages. Mediator voltar, she said finally, her voice carrying across space to the planet below. We didn't come here to be warriors. We didn't cross the galaxy to prove how tough we are, or to show off our weapons. She paused, watching his council. Rescue ships moved carefully through the debris field to help damaged human vessels. We came because others needed help. That's what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. Captain Dongwook approached carefully, his own uniform showing the signs of battle. In his hands were the preliminary casualty reports that every commander dreaded to read. His face was grim as he handed her the data pad. The numbers were staggering. Over 60% casualties among the human fleet. Entire ships lost with all hands. Young pilots who would never see another sunrise. Engineers who had died at their posts, keeping weapons firing until the very end. The price of victory had been paid in human blood and sacrifice, but the mission was complete. The harvesters were defeated. Their threat to the galaxy ended forever. The adaptive systems that had made them invincible against civilized warfare had finally met their match in humanity's ancient understanding that some things were worth dying for. All surviving ships, Admiral Hygen commanded, her voice carrying across the fleet, prepare for the journey home. Set course for Earth. It's time to go home. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, carried by faster-than-light communication networks to every inhabited world, a new chapter in galactic history began. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and the galaxy would never be the same.